Welcome to the Laser Lounge podcast, and I'm your host, James Pate. This is your premier destination for all things laser and beyond. Whether you're deep into the CO2 and Galvo laser community, or you're exploring the world of CNC and woodworking, we've got you covered. Join us as we dive into a vast array of topics, from creating amazing projects with your lasers to making savvy business and marketing decisions. Our show is brought to you by our fantastic sponsors. They are Thunder Laser USA, Phantom CNC, Rotoboss Rotary Attachments, and Hotien Laser. We're here to inspire, inform, and ignite your passion for making. So tune in and let's create something special. Hi, James. How are you doing?
Hey, great.
That's your mic.
Yeah, I see it.
We're getting all connected over here. Oftentimes, we kind of join from different sessions, and we've been busy working today. So we're kind of just coming both at you from my normal setup. But for those of you that have joined us, thank you for joining us on Sunday. I know a lot of people are spending time with their family. Most of you will be listening to this later, but I wanted to get James on here while he was here at the shop today, and to talk about something that he does for our business in a dedicated role. But before I do that, James, I want you to introduce yourself while I try to get it going in the Facebook group. So go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of what you do for our business, and a little bit about your background too. That way it kind of sheds some light on kind of how you're being able to do this so successfully.
Sure. Yeah. James Pate, Alicia's husband. I handle the business development for the company. So I actually call on the companies and go out and, do kind of sales calls, take the orders, figure out what their needs are. And Alicia and I will come back and talk about the products, and we'll make samples for them, or, demo pieces or whatever. And I run the CNC. We're sponsored by Phantom, so we run that CNC, and then I do the woodworking. We've got some cedar on our property, so we harvest that. We've got a sawmill and a kiln that we built, so I kind of take care of that stuff, more of the, I guess, behind the scenes stuff, and a little bit of the making.
Okay, perfect for the introduction. Thank you for that. He was talking a little bit about his role, and I guess about a year ago we transitioned you from kind of just being a great helper as far as helping me get product out the door, to really focusing on the sales portion of the side of it. And I stepped back and pretty much just let you take that over. So, what does that look like? That means I don't really do any of the connections with the external people anymore like I used to. I let James handle all that. So if we want some new business, he and I will talk and say, we need a couple of new clients, and he'll start the research and say, I think this is a good company. And he totally reaches out to them himself. I'm really not involved in any of the communication of it. And so in the Facebook groups, we've had a couple of people ask us, how's James doing that? Because I got a new client, we're starting up some new work with them, and they'll say, I need a James. They're kind of joking about it, but some people are honestly really asking me, how are you guys doing that? And so I thought, I'd get James on here and we talk about that. And so this session is going to be about what kind of strategies are we using in our business at Pate Ranch to win over new clients. And we're not really talking about direct to consumer clients. We're talking about larger companies who are going to order more of a wholesale volume level. So James, start us off on this topic. Let's say, I'll tee it up, but let's say that we want to add another to our portfolio, another client, like a big store who buys from us in decent volume. How would you go about identifying them and then getting contact with them?
Yeah, I think, it starts maybe a little earlier than that, if that's okay, if I hit on that. We've talked a lot, and we talk pretty much every day and over a coffee about, our portfolio, who our customers are, what we're aligned with, kind of, you've talked a lot about who you're, and who is, why you're building, what you're making, and what your product offerings are. And so we've revamped our portfolio offering to do things that we think we can add a lot of value with. We don't want to compete with everybody on Etsy for.
Sorry, go ahead.
Buy blank, cutting boards and engrave them. And there's some people that can do that and they can make good money with it. Some people, they do. I mean, I know you do some cups, you engrave some cups, but that's not our main business. And some people can make a lot of money with that. That hasn't, maybe it's the area we're in or what we market or however we market, but we haven't made a lot of money with that or haven't been, real successful with that. But we figured out that we can provide a high quality product at a very reasonable price and high service. So we try to offer a little more up, higher end hardwoods and leathers.
Well,
and
we
those kind of
moved
things.
past the cutting board.
Yes.
It's really, and that's not a bad thing. It's just the maturity of where our business was. It was time to do that because we knew, and we've talked about this before in other podcasts, we were carrying too many products. It really wasn't within our our main clientele.
Yeah. So having said that, was a little bit of background, right?
Okay.
We transitioned from direct to customer to largely business to business. And we really seek out customers that are going to value what we offer, which I think is, high quality products, high service level. It's not going to be the commodity thing. We're not competing with China or Etsy. We're not set up for that. So first of all, it starts off with targeting your customers that are going to value that and appreciate it. So you should always be solving your customer's problem. And what is their problem?
But you may not know about it though.
Right. But like if we, again, stepping back just a little bit, we know what our value add is. So then we go out and try to find companies that are going to value what we provide. Right. If somebody just wants, pins engraved or they want cups engraved and they're looking for the lowest possible price, that's not going to be us. We're not going to compete with that.
So to give an example, if you were someone who had expertise in engraving small things like pins or maybe paintbrushes, you might go to makeup companies, right? You might look at L'Oreal or some company who sells a lot of brushes that have a logo written on them. Or that's what we're trying to say. You're trying to find a target company that fits with what you're currently kind of doing.
Yes. And we've pivoted recently. You've added some higher end leather, some nicer woods, some really cool things that you've done with coasters and stuff like that for promotional things. They're a little higher end for customers. And I think that's helped us focus on our customers. So, the customers we're looking for are going to have some requirements. Like we talk about how you're a viable business. And I know you've mentioned this before, but our customers are going to look, they're going to require that we have insurance. They're going to ask for catalogs. There's some things you have to have just to
So that's like a prerequisite to even kind of start this lane.
That's right. Yeah. That's where I'm kind of going with this to set this up. And then, maybe I'll offer an example at the end. We service some insurance companies and then we've scaled to some other insurance companies. I want to talk about how we do that. So
what you're saying is there's some prerequisites that you probably need to have in place before you start really reaching out to larger companies, because they're going to be looking to see that you're insured and that you've got some of those things that a real business should have in place.
Yeah. And before we get in, maybe that's the best way to do it. Talk about some of these prerequisites and then who we target, how we target them, and then maybe provide an example. Is that okay to progress with that? Okay. So, they're going to look to see when I call a customer, a business, I notice that they check some things on us. First of all, they don't know if it's a scam. Sometimes I'm just cold calling them. Now I will say this, I try to get an introduction if I can. If I know somebody who knows the restaurant that I'm going to call on or the insurance company, I will ask them to do an introduction. If I have, we have real estate agents we work with now. And if I want to target another real estate agent company or service company, I will ask them, do you know somebody there? I can also check on LinkedIn. Obviously, these are all things that you should be doing, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So when we call on these companies, we've noticed a trend. They're going to check us out. They're going to want references. And that helps if you have another company that you're doing business with. Again, that's a affinity kind of thing. Like if it's another insurance company or another real estate agent, they're going to check this. They're going to check your website. You better have a valid website and it better look right. It better not have typos on it. And
half of them like stubs of pictures go here or whatever. So you need to be kind of buttoned up is what you're saying on your webpage.
Yeah. I think ours is probably A-, B+. It's not A+. So, let's be honest. So we need to do a little work on ours. And I know we've revamped it, but I would say you need to get it. Yeah. You probably need to get it to at least an A-. Someone needs to look at it and it needs to look respectable. and we could dive into more of that later, but they're going to look to see you're a viable business. In other words, do you have an LLC or an S corp?
And they don't necessarily ask you that, but they're probably Googling and looking that up.
I think they do Google you. I know they do. And I've heard that in the past, once I've gotten to be friends with some of these other business owners. They're looking to see you have insurance. We have to be bonded. We do business with some of these businesses that we call on, even to bid with them. You have to show you have $2 million of insurance coverage. They're also going to want a custom catalog. Now I know that's a little bit of work, and you do that. I don't do that, but we do catalogs that are customized with their names on them. And I think you're doing kind of mock-ups, right?
Yeah, it's just a digital portfolio that you can kind of send them. Once you get past the door of, yes, I'd love to see more of your work, the next thing that we typically do is send them a digital catalog, and it's more customized of our stuff that we make. I just usually layer their logo over each one and put the pricing on there for them.
Yes. And then they ask for samples. So that's a whole nother discussion. I think if they're a company that really wants to do business with you, our policies, we just give them the sample. I'm not going to charge them for it. Now, if they keep coming back with random requests and you're not sure if it's going to work out, you might tell them, yeah, you need to kind of pay for the sample.
Yeah, it's just a judgment call.
Yeah.
I know as we're getting more mature in this business to business, we're not giving as much free stuff out just because we're not needing to. And as you're going over these prerequisites, one of the ones that stood out was the second bullet you said, which was the references. And that's, I think, why we're not having to do so many samples, is because we're starting to carry some decent names that they're actually calling those other companies because they know some of those other people.
Or they see our product.
Yeah.
Right? And that's another tip. Where you can, if it's a custom product, I would definitely put your company logo on it on the bottom. Now, if it's a little, if it's a keychain or something that's really not, very consequential, maybe you don't want to go that far. What do you think?
No, I agree. We try to brand everything unless it's the client says they want something different. But so let me just sum up the prerequisites.
Well, there's one more.
Okay.
That's interesting. I think we've seen recently, we've had several customers that have wanted to come out and see our shop.
Oh yeah.
And do you want to tell them why that is? We were talking about that this morning.
Yeah, we actually have somebody coming out here Thursday, and we're going to have to clean up our shop a little bit more just because we're a production shop. But I think they're wanting to see if we're really legit. Are we making things, or are we buying or we buying from some other maker and putting our label on it and moving it along? I'm starting to see an uptick in that a little bit. People are wanting to get more insight into, the inside of your shop and how you're doing it. And they're not saying it in a disrespectful way. They're just like, I'd love to come out and visit and see what all y'all got going on out there. And, you need to be kind of open to that, I guess, if it's worth that client. The one that we have Thursday, we think it could be a big opportunity for us. And so it gives us some time to really clean our shop up. But I get it. I mean, if somebody's going to spend 10 grand, 20 grand a month with you, they want to see that you're actually making it. And it's not just you're a middleman and kind of doing a little Houdini.
They want to make sure you're viable. I mean, we do business with a couple of big universities, and we've had to fill out surveys that have asked us what our supply chain looks like. Do we have redundancy? We do procure some stuff and then we finish it or custom engrave it, but we can make it here as well. And when we do that split, and it's a whole nother discussion, but it's always good to have, kind of a backup plan. You should always have alternate ways to fill, because that's what the customer's doing. They're saying, look, I'm going to be relying on you to make these products. I want to make sure there's some other options. So those were the kind of the prerequisites.
I'm going to summarize them here. Sure. And if I miss one, let me know. So prerequisites before you really start, full blown trying to engage with business to business clients is, what was this first one? I'm just going to go references, your web page or your outward facing shingle, like your Facebook page, web page should be there. Are you a viable business? Are you an LLC, an S Corp? You need to have all that buttoned up. Carrying insurance. They're going to look for insurance. You're probably going to be having some type of custom catalog or the next piece that you would be giving them, because you're going to be saying, yes, I'll email you something after you get off the call. You may get to the point where you get samples. So it's a discussion to talk about after that.
Particularly if they're high volume, right?
If they're high volume. Yeah. I think we've shipped samples to every single large business to business that we've worked with so far. So, I mean, for us, that's what we've been done. And then maybe a shop visit. But that first one, I can't remember what my handwriting is so bad.
We'll come back to that one. Yeah. So that was ensuring that you have a viable business. When somebody looks at you, you want to make sure that they view you as a business, right? And there are requirements. If you don't have those, they won't do business with you. The next one was identifying the companies you want to target.
Okay. So now we got a prerequisites. Everything's buttoned up. Now, how do you go and say, I want to go and target, I'm going to make up something, a large insurance company who, like Hartford. Okay. Aren't they a big insurance company? How are you going to go target Hartford? What does that look like? So,
well, I think I'm first of all, I'm aligning it with our portfolio. We streamlined our portfolio over the last year, I think, and we're still doing it. I mean, we were at a point where someone would ask us, can you do this? And we were answering the question, well, yeah, we can do that. Let's figure out how to do it. And then we weren't really asking ourselves the right question. Do we want to do this? Does this align with the vision for our company? Does it, will it distract us from building other, and we've talked about this, right? Every week pretty much, but does it distract us from building value added products for our vision for our company? Like if we went off and built, let's say somebody wanted, something like picture frames. We've made picture frames before and we got asked to make those, but I was like, I'm not really a picture frame shop. And
yeah, basically what you're trying to say is as we've gotten down this road, there are things that have kind of themes that we do, and they're using leather and cedar and wood and more Western Texas theme. Those are the things that we have. I don't want to use the word perfected, but that's part of a large part of our product line. So we're going after clients that would be buying that. I'm not going to a foo-foo, Chanel store and saying, I've got this high-end thing that you're going to love. And your ladies who buy Chanel purses or whatever it is, they're going to want, I wouldn't target them. I would target a company that maybe is in the Western wear space, or we do some work with real estate agents. So we've got a lot of, charcuterie closing gifts. Well, insurance agents do a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm trying to get with that example of what you're making. If you are engraving firearms or you're doing firearm accessories, you may want to go talk to a shop that is actually a gun shop, right? Or somebody who has, a couple of live ranges, live ranges, and you can offer some things for them. So that's what we're trying to say with that.
Yeah. So I look at companies that I hope would order from our catalog if they saw it.
Yeah.
Because when I call them, I try to get them to look at our catalog, and we'll get into the example here in a minute, but I try to get them to look at the catalog. And in my mind, I'm saying if they look at our products, they're going to want to purchase our products.
Because that's the kind of stuff that's already in their store.
Or it'll complement it.
Correct.
Right? Or maybe it's something they don't have that they would like to have, like some of the leather stuff you've done. I think they see value in that, and it's different, and it's a higher value proposition.
And we're not saying that's the only, but it's just it's easier sell that way.
Yes, exactly. And then I don't want to do something that they already have, because I want them to see me as a value add to their business.
Yeah.
Right. Does that make sense? So I'm identifying these customers that are going to value what we bring to the equation, value our products. And I'm thinking in my mind, what problem do they have, or what solution do they need? Can I be part of that solution? When you originally talked to them though, are you thinking that? Are you just I'm identifying them up front, and I'm thinking to myself, here's my catalog. Are they going to be receptive to these items?
So, okay.
Yeah, and I know you're going to order. Would they want to order from the catalog?
Okay.
Yes.
I know you're going to get into it, but you're going to start talking about what you talk about during that phone call. You may say, hey, I noticed on your webpage that you don't have a XYZ, and that's something that we have.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Or I'll say, I called a Western company and I said, hey, I think these products complement the ones that you already have. You want to just go through an example of that? So we have.
What would you typically do?
Okay. So first of all, it's great if somebody calls us and sees our product and they come to us, but we're talking about a situation where the scenario is I'm cold calling them basically, right? So ideally I would get an introduction to them. If I know the company, Then I will go through LinkedIn. We have some friends that are, that have businesses that have friends of friends of friends. And I don't try to ask them all the time, but I might ask them, do you know somebody at company X? And they, sometimes they do, maybe 10, 20% of the time I can get an introduction. But let's say I can't get an introduction, then I will try to find out who's buying the product. Is it the marketing manager? Do they have a buyer? Do they have a business development person? These are the kind of people that buy our products. So I will call and ask for that person. But what I do literally is I will call, and sometimes it's just, it's a receptionist or an admin or someone like that. And I'll just introduce myself and just say, hello, this is James Pate from Pate Ranch. I offer custom branded, products, goods and services, laser engraved products. I was hoping to get a hold of, and hopefully I know the name of the person. If I don't, then yes, it's a little awkward because I have to say, I want to talk to your business development person. I think I have some products that you guys might be interested in purchasing. And a surprising number of times they'll tell me who the person is. And then they'll say, I'm going to transfer you to their number. And then they may not pick up the phone. They may not be there. I look up their email address. I leave them a voicemail. Then I look up their email address. I will actually email them the catalog. And I'll send them like a nice little note, like, just 2 or 3 sentences. And I'll say, here's some products that I think you might be interested in. I'll put screen captures of them in, and then a link to our catalog.
So what would you say your success has been of getting to that right person overall? Is it like a 50%? Is it like?
It's about 40%. And okay. we get somewhere in the order of magnitude, a little less than a quarter of the customers we go after, we actually get orders from. Okay. But I've already filtered them. That's a very high rate.
So you're calling and saying, you might even call the 1-800 number and you say, or when it has contact us, sometimes you can get to the main office and say.
I've called some major manufacturers.
Yeah, you called Ralph Lauren.
Yeah. And LaCasey. Yes.
And got through and asked for their buyer and got through to them, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so now you got the person. And I hear you talking on the phone a lot over there. What I hear you say is, if you're in front of your computer, can you pull up a web page?
Yeah. So I try to get them to look at it, even if it's the receptionist or the admin or the business officer, the office manager or whatever their title is. And so that's why it's important to have a good website, right? And then, like some of our country Western themed stuff, if I'm calling a place that's geared towards that, then they see it and they say, hey, this is really cool stuff. And so, and then I tell them that we have wholesale pricing because they're looking at our direct to customer pricing.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to make y'all think that we get hits every time. We've got some that have just said if they like your stuff, they'll call you back, and they don't. So
some of it is blowing me off.
Yeah, that's the reality of it.
Some most of the time you do get blown off. So,
but you need to try.
It's pretty high hit rate. But again, we're looking. You and I are talking about these customers saying, hey, they should want this product and this product and this product, and I get them to look at the product while they're on the phone with me.
And I'll tell you, one of the ones that we're working with, we stumbled upon that one of our other clients was actually, liking and thumbs upping some of their stuff, and we're like, oh, hey, there might be, if someone we're working with now is liking this other store's stuff, and you can see it's this kind of a synergy. And then James called that other company, and now we're working with them because.
Well, that's exactly how that worked. I called and asked for the purchasing manager. I told them what our business was, and the person did look. It's kind of a family business, so they were easy and they were very nice on the phone. But they looked at our product and said, "Hey, this actually looks pretty good." I said, "Well, I'd like to, really let's get a deal going with you guys. I really like your shop. I think it's aligned with our values and our products. You have high quality stuff. We'd like to think we do too." And so she sent me to the individual's phone, and I thought he might not pick up. So I said, well, do you have his email address in case he doesn't pick up? So she gave me the email address. Plus I left him a voicemail. This was like on a Thursday or Friday. I sent him an email exactly like I described, just 2 or 3 sentences, some pictures, and then a link to our catalog. He didn't call me back, and I probably called him back early because I think it was a Monday, but he's like, yeah, I looked at it. I was just about to call you, and who knows if he was or not. But now we have orders from that person, and we've gotten some pretty good orders, and it usually starts off, they'll order a very small amount just to test us, right?
Yeah, and we've talked about something important, which was the references part. We were able to reference that we're working with X, Y, Z, whatever. And that they were like, oh, well, y'all must have gone through their filter and their hoops and wickets. So I can kind of at least open the idea that you guys may be legit to work with.
And he looked it up online too to see that. So those products are online. So he could see that they were online.
We were able to send him to a couple of other customers' websites that are larger names and say, if you go look here, we make that.
And we had good reviews there, too, good customer reviews. So,
okay. So now you've got a hold of somebody, or you haven't, but you at least have their name. What does the conversation start like? So you ask them, now you're asking them, are you in front of a computer? And if they pull it up, you have them go to a couple of things on our page, right?
Yes. And I just walk them through it. So I'll tell them, please click on the leather link or the wood link. And then if you look down 3, I think that would be a value. And then they'll pretty much let you know whether they think it's of high value or not. Now they're going to ask you, do you have wholesale pricing? Of course we do, for volumes, right? So you have to have a whole strategy behind that. That's a whole nother discussion. But
if your website stinks, you're done.
Yeah, exactly. Because, and again, I wouldn't say ours is great. It needs a little bit of work, it needs a little organization, but it's not terrible. I mean, we've gotten, gotten pretty good feedback on it. Right.
Okay. So now you've got them to at least say, yeah, I'm interested. Then do they typically say, send me more, send me something, or do you offer, I'm going to send you an email, or how does that next kind of movement go forward?
Well, I play it by ear, right? Because every situation is different, but some of them want a sample, some want to place an order right away. And I'm trying to remember, so I told them how we work with you doing the mock-ups when they place an order and then the mock-up gets approved. That's a tip you might want to tell them about. That's worked out really well. Just the workflow that you have there, they like that. So what they're doing is they're testing you just to see how you operate, right?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of these, well, it's interesting because as we're getting better companies that we're working with, and I say better, and I only mean that as in they're larger. So you can tell that the vendors or suppliers they're working with their game is pretty good. So with the last one, they're actually issuing official POs and I'm having to send information back before they get a sign off to be able to start the work. So the proofs have to be signed off.
Approval.
Yeah. And so there's a lot more workflow approval process with some of the more established companies, where some of the early days, it was just like, yeah, I'll send you a visual proof and then we'll get going. Then I'll send you invoice after. It feels like it's getting more buttoned up. And, as we're getting higher fidelity, companies,
more mature companies,
absolutely,
right? Yeah, bigger companies.
So you got to be ready for that. And so I like to use Adobe Express to mock up everything, and I use there's you can send a link and get the approval workflow. So we've also recently just signed up with Monday, so we're using more software based applications so that we look more professional and polished.
And they have links to go to check the status, right? They like all that. I mean, they are looking, again, we hit this at the beginning, but they're looking to make sure you're not scamming them, right? They want to make sure you're a legitimate business. And I mean, I would, on a note on that, you don't have to start off getting these huge orders or these huge companies, and you probably won't, but if you step up, I don't think it's bad to start with direct to customer, even if you want to go B2B, because you're learning your craft. You're learning how to make production volumes, right? It's hard to start off and just hit the ground that big of a scale of a business, right?
You need to make your errors with direct to customers.
Yep.
Okay, so you got them on the phone. They're like, yes, it looks good. Do you typically send an email after with a follow-up? And
yes, I follow up with a note on what the conversation was, what I thought they had value on. If they want samples, if they're a large company and I think this has legs and it's going to be a significant company for us, then, and they even hint around to it, I'm just going to send them samples. I mean, and that's a case by case, you have to make that judgment, right? If you're going to have a, $5,000 worth of business from somebody a year, you probably don't want to send them a bunch of free samples, right?
No. And, we did this, we did this with a boot company. We asked for approval to use their logo to send the sample to them. And, you should do that. If you're going to send them samples and you got them on the phone or email, ask them for approval for that, because that could make them mad. But we did that.
It's actually a legal issue, right?
We did that with a trademark, but we did that with a client and they said, yeah, send me the sample. And we had several conversations with that company and the prices just didn't work out. We didn't want to sell out. And we've talked about that before. You still want to hold your value of your product. So they don't always win. But so then you got samples. So now you sent the email, you sent the samples, and then it just kind of goes from there. If you don't hear anything back, what do? Do you follow up with them?
I do. I'll follow up probably twice. I mean, and it's a little awkward, right? The first time you follow up is awkward. And if I just judge, when we had a hotel that, and that was a weird situation because you took them a sample when you just happened to be in town. They loved it. They placed a personal order for some of our products. They gave us a bunch of positive feedback. We sent them, I don't know if we charged them for the samples, but we sent them, and this is going to be a big order for us. And so I called that individual back, the kind of like the mid-level manager. And she said, well, this has to go to the directors for approval. And that was about a month ago. I haven't heard back.
Couple weeks. You don't know. That's the deal with B2B.
Yeah,
There's
true.
a lot of committees involved, and you don't know how many people.
We found that. Yeah.
And you're being shopped against somebody else for the same thing. So let's be honest. If you're making a coaster, that's where your numbers have to be, sharp, because if you're quoting out 600 coasters and you're giving them wholesale pricing, they're going to go ask for the same kind of bid from probably 10 other people.
Yeah. And they may go with somebody else over 10 cents. I don't know. I'm okay with that now. I mean, we used to try to win every bid or every job that we got and be disappointed if we didn't get it. It's just not going to work out sometimes. And that's why it's important that you get, for us anyways, for our philosophy, we get these bigger customers that place larger orders, larger volume orders. Now our margins are lower than direct to customer, but the volume's there and the net income's there. And so you have to balance things out like cash flow and your shop rate. And if you should really have a spreadsheet. We have a spreadsheet with each product. We know how much it cost us and cost of goods and services, right? So the material and the labor cost, and then how many hours it takes. And then it just automatically calculates how much we're making per hour and what our margin is. And we have numbers that we try to hit. So everybody should have their own numbers, right? That's personal.
So then typically if it does work out, then we'll get maybe the first order or two. And that's kind of where I'm mainly stepping in, because I'm interfacing with them more than James. James may do a call every couple of weeks with them and say how things going, just wanted to confirm whatever, like, how is it looking? Is there something we can change? We try to let James be that person who's doing that true sales business development role. That way it's all going through him. Whereas I'm dealing with the orders and, what the proofs look like, the actual details of the ordering of the, whatever they're buying. And he's dealing with all the talking to the buyer or the person who's receiving it, et cetera. It's just easier that way for us. If you're a one-man show and doing it, I would suggest maybe doing one half day where that's all you're doing is dedicating to kind of catering to those clients. And
yeah, you should probably have a number. Like we have a number of clients we call on every week. And so new customers and existing, and when they place their second order, I'll usually call them and thank them for the order. I'll ask for feedback. They are going to evaluate you initially, especially. You really don't want to make a mistake at the beginning, because then they're thinking that you're going to be prone to a lot of errors, right? Mistakes. Yeah. And so we've seen that with all the customers we've worked with. They've kind of ramped up. They won't start off with huge orders, right? They just kind of,
they want to test you. They want to test you. And, you do need to ask for feedback, because they're not always, if they're a large company, they may just say, well, I don't want to order from them anymore. But if you call and say, is there anything we can do different? Yeah, maybe put less oil on it, or you don't necessarily need to wrap these. That's fine. Or let them give you that feedback and make those changes, because sometimes we're doing things that we don't think that is an impact to them. We're used to putting a lot of oil on stuff. They might be a clothing store and they're like, oh my God, all this oil. Like, I don't need it on all this.
Yeah. We've seen with these medium-sized companies, which we have a lot of, or say a lot of, most of our customers are medium-sized businesses. They don't get treated like a large customer might be treated, or a large company. And they need a little more help. They might not have, all the different organizations that, you have one person who's doing finance and business development and marketing and, sales or something like that, like at the one company you mentioned earlier. So they appreciate it if you give them that extra service, right?
Yeah.
So I think, again, it goes back to what you're going to offer the customer. And so we're looking for customers that value that level of service, because we can provide that.
But I would say, just for this kind of topic here that we're talking, and I'll put the banner back up, is, how are you going to get out there and win over new clients? What I've seen with James is don't be shy. And he'll say it's kind of awkward sometimes, but he gets in his zone and starts talking to him, and he's not shy. I mean, they're just people too. And after you get off the phone, if they reject you, who cares?
You just laugh about it. I mean, and it happens. It happens a lot. I mean,
and I'm sitting over here going, I call texting my girlfriends, he's talking to calling Ralph Lauren or
well, you were like, you can't do that. I'm like, why not? I mean,
and you were on the phone with them. So, why not?
Yeah. And like you said, we might get a call back in a month. We might not. And we've had that happen where they'll surprise us and call us back, a customer that we hadn't heard from in a month, or someone I called on. I think a lot of that, just a tip there, it's mindset, right? If you don't try, you're going to miss 100% of the shots you don't make or take. I mean, you're not going to, if you don't take a chance, you're not going to have a chance to win. You got to open that door and go through it. And you're not failing, you're just learning and you're improving and you're not giving up, you're not quitting. And, you're lucky if you get 1 out of 10 orders you go after, or customers. We have higher than that, but these are people that we think should already be buying from us. I don't mean that arrogantly. I just think that, our products fit their needs. And we're still lucky to get, 20, a little below a quarter of the customers we go after. We're very targeted, Yeah.
I mean, you called Ralph Lauren, you called the Alamo. Don't be shy. Call places that are offering, if you are into ornaments, call places that do large scale ornaments. If you're up in the Tennessee area, call Dollywood. I mean, see if you can get your ornaments.
And if you can meet with them in person, that's even better. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah.
But if you can meet with them in person, hey, can I buy you a coffee, or can I just stop by and drop off some samples? And you're going to have to do that, especially if you're really cold calling. Like, we're getting introductions a lot too. So that 24%, kind of success rate, those include the people that we're getting, leads on. And you can ask your current customers, if you're working with real estate agents, or let's say you're working with a local gun shop and you're doing engraving for them, ask them if there are other gun shops in your service.
He that's a good point. He did that with one of these companies that we're working with now. He said, who else could I call? What were your words?
Do you have anyone else that you think so he had given us a compliment, like, hey, I really appreciate your service, really like your products. I'm like, well, thanks for the compliment. We're trying to grow, so your business means a lot to us. And by the way, is there anybody else that you think, could use our services?
And he gave him a name, and that's the guy who's coming out here Thursday.
Coming Thursday. Yeah. And that's a big deal for us. And one of the things I noticed is they were really looking for, they want people that are making their own product, that aren't just buying things and just engraving them and pushing them out the door, or reselling them and marking them up. They don't need that.
No, that made in America, made in Texas, or whatever state in, that's a big deal, as most of y'all know. The other thing that I'm observing as I'm watching this is that the personal touch of it is important. So just shooting off emails blindly, that's not working.
No, that's not going to work.
I think it's that, connection on the phone. And then, like you said, if you get to go meet them. You went a couple times to a distillery that we were working with, and that was like 4 times. And we were like, oh my God, how many times do we have to go? But you have to go so many times as you need to.
We got orders from them. And that's the other thing, sales. I used to always laugh and say, you don't need a salesperson. They're just taking an order. Well, those people are always following up. Like, we have new products and I will follow up with them. It gives me an excuse to go see them. And if they're a good customer, I do bring them a sample. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I just don't want to get into the habit of, just giving away a bunch of stuff just to give it away. But
and you get the discussion with them. Like that one told you, you tried to sell some hats. They said, we've got hundreds of hats, but they're not very good hats. And once we get through all these hats, because they were defective, or they didn't like what they got. They didn't
like the patch or something. So we brought them an example of the patch you had, and they like that.
Yeah. And so they're like, yeah, that could be something. So you get some inside tips of, some things that might be a gap for them. So let's talk about a couple of things that are negative, the pros and cons of this, right? Not B2B, but the calling part. Like, how do you go get them? What are some of the things that aren't so great about it?
Well, you're going to get rejected. I mean, if you get one out of 10, you're doing pretty good. I don't like the completely cold calling. So I will not call somebody I've never called someone thinking, oh, I hope they like my product. I've always thought, and I don't mean this arrogantly, I just always thought my product would align with their values and their other product offerings, but we'd be doing something extra or special or something they would value. So so in a way, I guess it's not really cold calling. It is awkward. It's super awkward. I'm an engineer, so we tend to be kind of introverted, right? But even at work, I'm doing R&D projects for equipment reliability, and I have to go work with these other business units. So they have to buy something from me. Like if they don't want me to work on their equipment, then I don't have a job. But what I do is I go in and figure out, okay, what is their problem? I know what their business plan looks like because I've worked in these business units. And so I say, look, you're having a problem with this downtime, this non-productive time. I think I can help eliminate that. But I do my homework ahead of time. I get the non-productive time. I get their bad actor list. I figure out what their problems are and say, look, we think we could provide a solution for this. And here's a sample. Yeah.
Okay. So basically.
So I'm just making a parallel. You should be doing that with the customers you work with. Find out what their value drivers are and make sure your product can help support those.
Very true. And to that, if you see on their webpage, they have cruddy looking coasters, you might say,
yeah,
hey, I might have some offering of some higher end coasters for your clients.
Or we had a customer that had a very poor end grade, and we said, hey, can you send us some samples of what you do now? They wanted some samples from us. And we said, yeah, we can send you some samples. Can you send us a couple of samples of what you're getting now? And so you sent them a little package, and then we called them and said, do you notice a difference between these?
Yeah.
I think it was on a fiber versus a CO2.
Something like that.
Yeah. So you got a lot better engraved because it was metal.
Okay. Ahead. So rejection, that's a negative. What else is kind of a negative? It's kind of, you have to do a little research sometimes.
Yeah, well, that's what I was getting at. You have to do your homework first because you're going to get rejected like 99% of the time, I think. If you're just, I'm not like, it's not like you're cold calling trying to sell someone some stock or trying to, buy their land off them or something, like some kind of scam. I mean, you're trying to provide them a solution. And so you should call them knowing that genuinely think that you can add value to their business.
Okay. If somebody's going to do this first time, would you say like real estate agents, like a real estate company would be kind of a good
I would go through that progression. We talked about what are the products that you offer now? Do you have other real estate agents you're already working with? Because if you do, the first step is to get introductions if you can. If you can't, and as you said, you can mention, hey, I'm working with Joe Blow. Don't you think that, I could provide the same services you do?
And that's where you could get the names. You're working with, Cindy Johnson. Hey, Cindy, who else do you think maybe could use my services? Could you make a call for me? I tell you, the whole network within businesses that are similar is huge. You'd be surprised because let's just take roofers. Okay. I'm going to make it up, but roofers in the town, they're in competition with each other, but they know who each other are, and they meet in circles, and they know, and they kind of talk together. So if you're working with one roofer, let's say you're making them hats or cups and that's working, you can ask the next guy, hey, do you know, is anyone else that, maybe you're no threat to them to make cups. Dog in the background. You're no threat to make cups, but ask. The network is huge among these people. So let's do this, James. Let's go ahead and kind of summarize this. That way we can wrap it up. So if you're going to, try to get more business to business, you need prerequisites. You need to have references, your webpage in check, be a real business, an LLC or working as a DBA. Insurance, have some of your marketing materials ready to go, and potentially some samples. And if someone asks to come visit, be open to having them come into your shop. The next would be identify those customers that you want to go after that ideally would fit and align with kind of your mission and values and your product lines.
Who you are, make sure you can add value to their business.
Yeah. Then you start contacting them. Connect with either the buyer or whoever's in charge of marketing, etc., or get the name of those people.
And sometimes we didn't talk about this. You have the influencer, the purchaser, and the end consumer, right?
Yeah. So
sometimes you can go through an influencer too.
Yep. Very true.
Somebody that knows them or that, can talk to them for you. Again, a reference.
Yep. And then once you typically get them on the phone, you have them pull up our webpage and they start visually seeing what you're talking about.
Gives you some credibility, and you can't describe it over the phone. They have to look at the product,
Yep.
right?
You follow up with an email or some type of note. We sometimes send samples, and then hopefully that results in an order. And then we typically follow up with the clients that we have. We've got about 5 or 6 right now.
Make sure you get the halo effect going there.
What's that?
That's when you first start with someone, they're going to evaluate you. And if their first 2 or 3 orders and experiences with you are good, then they're going to say, I like this person. I like doing business with them. And that really matters. You want it to be easy to do business with you, not just your product's good, your price is good, but you're easy to work with.
And before we close here with that, we're working with a newer company right now, and I'm throwing in samples with each order.
That's a good
So the
idea.
last order, I put in 2 samples of ornaments, and she called me back and said, hey, what's the pricing on these ornaments? And I gave it to her, the volume ones. And so now I got to work on 150 crystal ornaments this week for them. So slipping things in with your orders. Hey, here's a new product. The last one I sent them a bag tag, right? And it may hit, it may not, but at least they see that, we're trying and we're hustling. So why don't you wrap us up here and just kind of a wrap up for the discussion, not the bullets we went through.
No, I think you did a great job. I mean, a lot of it's mindset and aligning these steps. Should you do these steps? Do you need the business? What is the vision for your goal, or goals for your business? That's going to motivate you, right? Because people get burned out because they're, that's a common thing these days. But, just try this, do a little mini experiment and see if it works. Try it 10 times and hopefully you win 1 or 2 orders. If you do, I think you'll get some positive feedback that will allow you to adjust your approach. And then you can kind of tune your approach and your success rate will go up.
Yeah. And I think if you do this the first couple of times, you're going to see errors. And what I mean by that, I know James, the first time he had someone pull up our website, he got off the phone and said, ooh, you need to go change this.
Oh, yeah.
That looked bad. Or, hey, I know there's a couple items you were like, you need to get that off. It doesn't look professional.
That's another tip, not to cut you off, but you could do a dry run with a friend or a family member, and then you could go through a role playing kind of thing.
Yeah. Find another maker that you maybe can trust and say, hey, can I call you? And like, let's say it's Pate Ranch. You want to call me and try to sell me your goods that I could rebrand and sell or whatever, and do that. That's a good idea. Well, James, thank you for coming on today. I hope this helps. We've had a couple people ask us how we're doing it, and not that what we're doing is gold. It's not. We're real. We like you said, we only hit about 24%.
We're learning every day.
But we want to share it. There's so many companies out there that you need to find the ones that align with what you're doing in your business, and be bold, get out there and get that business. And we're hoping it helps you. And we'll see you online in the Facebook group.
Thanks.